Welcome back to the United Stand. Bruno Fernandes, do you make him Manchester United's top earner or do you say goodbye to our captain? In my opinion, and a lot of your guys' opinion, our most important player. News is coming in that Bruno Fernandes wants to feel more valued at Manchester United and wants to go into the top pay bracket of Manchester United current players and what they earn at the club. And can you blame him? So my first initial question to you guys, before I bring the accurate news as what's coming in and where this could go is, would you make Bruno Fernandes the highest paid player at the club? Or would you sell him? What would you do? And people will automatically think, why did we give Rashford the contract that we gave him? Why did we give Sancho the contract we gave him? Even Mount, even Anthony, the likes of these players that are nowhere near Bruno Fernandes' level, why did we do this? Do two wrongs make a right? Does Bruno Fernandes deserve to be the highest paid player at the club? We'll talk about his current contract, everything like that. Get your comments in, get your votes down in the poll. We're going to go through the news. Also a little bit as well on the centre-back situation at Manchester United. But welcome everybody to the afternoon show. If you're new here, I am #1 Bruno Fernandes fan. I absolutely love him and I think he absolutely has the right to be the highest paid player at the club. Unfortunately, at the same time, Manchester United have given out stupid contracts, which then you get into stupid money category. And it's like, where do you draw the line at this? That's the question we've got to ask ourselves. But for me, Bruno Fernandes is probably the only player at the club that deserves the contract that he's probably going to be asking for. But get in the comments down below what you think. Get your votes going in on the poll. We're going to go through everything. But starting off with the news that is coming out from The Guardian and Jamie Jackson, really good journalist. He said that Bruno Fernandes is pushing for a new contract from Manchester United that will take him into the top pay bracket with Marcus Rashford, Casemiro and Jadon Sancho. Can you believe that they're our highest earners, by the way, them three players? It boggles my mind. As the captain waits for clarity regarding the manager and the club's long-term vision before deciding whether to seek a transfer. So all this news we're hearing about Bruno Fernandes' agent talking to other big clubs, Bruno Fernandes' agent talking to clubs across Europe and Bruno Fernandes potentially leaving, Romano has come out and said it, that is accurate. Bruno Fernandes hasn't decided his future at Manchester United. And that, for me, is massively, massively worrying. One of the only players that has a top talent, top mentality, and will do anything for this club, we're at risk of losing them. Like, that is a risk for us. There's only a couple of players that fit into that category for me. Bruno Fernandes, Lisandro Martinez is one of them. And then, obviously, you look at the younger players as well that have a good future ahead of them. But losing Bruno Fernandes is like losing the heartbeat. It's like losing the heart. It's like the most vital organ. He personally, for me, is massive, and this is something that is concerning. And I think what it stems from is Bruno Fernandes feeling undervalued at Manchester United. Already got some comments coming in. I mean, there's a few people saying let him go. Who on earth do you replace Bruno Fernandes with, by the way? And I'm not even just talking about talent. I'm talking about attitude. I'm talking about commitment. I'm talking about, you know, the leadership. He, for me, is the heartbeat of the club at the moment, and that is very, very hard to replace, I'm telling you. It really, really is, especially in terms of what the money you're kind of looking at. Because people can talk about, you know, these sort of fancy footballers that are up and coming. I hear a lot of people say Jamal Musiala, who we're never getting in a million years, by the way. People talk about Wirtz, people talk about Xavi Simons, but Bruno Fernandes, not only has he got experience and got talent, he has everything else in terms of personality, which is really hard to come by, and he knows the club inside out. But a little bit more on the news as well. He says, although the United hierarchy, led by Sir Jim Ratcliffe, view Fernandes as the team's best player, like most people do, and are not actively looking to sell him, they need to bring in funds and reduce the wage bill in order to invest significantly in the squad. And that may mean any realistic offer could be considered, basically, for Bruno Fernandes. So even though the United hierarchy do see Bruno Fernandes as, you know, a top player of this club, they're open. They're open. And again, people say we need to be open and we need to invest and we need to reinvest into this squad. But honestly, you sell Bruno Fernandes, I don't trust us to replace him. I don't trust us to spend that money wisely. I get it's a new structure now. I get it's a new ownership. But, you know, this is a club that has a track record of spending money horrendously. Like, we spent 72 million on Sancho and 80 million on Anthony. That is what this club has done in recent years. Very, very recent years. I get it's a new structure, But you could easily end up getting that Bruno Fernandes money and absolutely just throwing it down the drain and having nothing to show for it. And Bruno Fernandes is playing for a top club, absolutely killing it. And you think to yourself, if only we would have just invested in him. Because for me, how does a club justify Rashford on 350 grand a week and letting Bruno Fernandes go for wanting to be a valued member of the squad in terms of his wages, considering what he does for the club? That's where I can't draw the line. We're giving, in my opinion, the wrong players huge contracts, and ones like Bruno Fernandes, if we did let him go, that would be an absolute mistake. And people will say, you know, we never should have let the wage bill get this high anyway, and we're trying to draw it back. I get that, but the fact of the matter is, Marcus Rashford has just signed a new contract. He's not going anywhere. He has a right to see it out. That contract, for as long as he's on it, and I think he signed a 5-year deal last year, so that's 4 or 5 years now. Any player that performs is going to be looking at Marcus Rashford's contract while he's not performing and thinking, why am I nowhere near that when I'm doing more than him? That's if Marcus Rashford continues in the situation that he's in where he's not performing to that level. If he performs, then people can't talk about it. But at the moment, players are going to be looking at thinking, well, how come he's on that when he's playing like this and I'm playing like this, but I'm nowhere near that? That is a case that players are going to make. There's not many that can make that case because not many have performed. But Bruno Fernandes is absolutely one of them. Get your votes in the poll so far. Bruno Fernandes, make top earner, sell this summer. Make top earner is on 77%. I'm in massive agreement with the side of that vote. And sell this summer is on 23%. I'm going to explain a little bit in a second, like, why I would make Bruno Fernandes the top earner and what this does mean for the football club and how this does affect INEOS's intention of reducing the wage bill. Sam Brock says, clueless folk saying he's old. Only reason to sell him would be if Erik ten Hag thinks his lack of ball retention outweighs his creativity and his value to Manchester United. Sam Brock's, well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because Bruno Fernandes, okay, yeah, his ball retention is an area that he needs to work on, but in actually the last few games of the season, I thought his ball retention was brilliant, and in big games he's turned up. Whilst Man City's midfielder, who is, for me, one of the best Premier League midfielders we've ever seen, in Kevin De Bruyne, was getting substituted, Bruno Fernandes was carrying his team to a FA Cup win. It was a brilliant performance, and people talk about Bruno Fernandes not turning up in big games. He's got a brilliant track record in big games in terms of numbers, and then people say, well, it's just numbers, look at his performances. Didn't get any numbers against Man City in the FA Cup final, but was absolutely sensational. A sensational performance from him. So, and Erik ten Hag loves him, never substitutes him, is his captain. If Erik ten Hag continues to be our manager, I assume Ten Hag will not be happy about his best midfielder being sold. Lee Cape Town says, hi Beth, at the end of the day, the best is to sell him. Looking at his age and the way INEOS works, he will most probably be sold by next year. People are talking about his age. He's 29 years old, okay? Yeah, okay, that he's pushing 30. He's pushing 30, but, I mean, look at Luka Modric. Look at Toni Kroos. And yes, okay, these are top midfielders. I get that. I understand that. But Bruno Fernandes looks after himself. He's a machine. He never gets injured. He doesn't look like he's slowing down anytime soon. Why are people obsessed with his age at this point? Like, you could easily get another 5 years out of Bruno Fernandes, in my opinion, at the top level. Why would we be looking to sell him now? Why? Bruno Fernandes, you at least give it another 3 years before you even consider that, in my opinion. Like, people talk about age. Yes, you need younger players in a squad, and yes, we need to build a young squad. But you can't just have a squad full of kids. Like, you need experience in there. Casemiro's going, Varane's gone. You know, you need some experienced players in there. And you look around, you look around the squad after some of the older players have departed, and you've got Harry Maguire, who's like 30 or 31, I think. You've got Bruno, who's 29, and then I think you've got Rashford, who's like 20, 26, 27. Like, you look around the rest of the squad, and you need a little bit of experience in there. And most of them players, I mean, Maguire could go, and I don't expect him to be around at United for years to come. Marcus Rashford, to be honest with you, I wouldn't mind if we sold him this summer. I don't think it's going to happen, but it's one of them where I wouldn't mind because he's underperformed. Bruno Fernandes is one of the only players, who's in that experienced age range that is performing week in, week out and can be a leader to these young players coming up, in my opinion. Harry Maguire's had a great season, don't get me wrong, but he's not somebody that's going to be at the club for years to come, whereas Bruno can be, in my opinion. You need sort of experience there. I think a lot of people are quick to write Bruno off because of his age, but for me, if you look around Europe, I think that's the wrong thing to do. I mean, want to get into this a little bit more. So Bruno Fernandes signed a new deal in April 2022 worth about £220,000 a week that runs to 2026 with the option of a further 12 months. So if you look at Bruno, he's basically got another 3 years left on his deal if we triggered that extension. There's no wonder he feels undervalued. You know, he's nearly 30 years old, like a lot of people are pointing out his age. And if you look at his wage compared to the others, you can absolutely understand why he feels undervalued. So Bruno Fernandes is understood to feel undervalued and wishes to be one of the highest earners at the club and in the highest band of earners. So he's 30 in May, on 240 grand a week, and Rashford and Sancho are on 100 grand a week more than him. He's got every right to ask for more money. And this is why, for me, we shouldn't have given Rashford the contract we did. We shouldn't have given Sancho the contract we did. And just to put it into context, Mason Mount is on 10 grand more than him a week as well. Bruno Fernandes is on 240 grand a week. Mason Mount's on 250 grand a week. Mason Mount, okay, yeah, he looks like he's going to be a good player, he's talented. But in a United shirt, he's done nothing so far. And he's earning more than the captain, who is played for a brick wall for this club for years on end, has contributed massive amounts to this club. You can understand why he feels undervalued and underappreciated. To put it into more context, Anthony is on 200 grand a week. 200 grand a week, and Bruno's on 240. So, you know, if Bruno Fernandes is looking around the room, Casemiro is on 350 grand a week, and he's had a terrible season. You can kind of excuse the Casemiro thing because obviously he's done absolutely loads in his career to kind of earn that. But now, and he's going to leave Manchester United anyway, so it's one of them where he's going to go. So Casemiro kind of goes out of the equation. But Bruno Fernandes is providing more than Casemiro, so you look at that, he's providing more than him. Jadon Sancho, and I'm not talking about the first time, which I completely understood, but last year had about 3 months off because he refused to apologise while the club was in an injury crisis, and he's on 350 grand a week, his contract. Like, that is a madness to me, an absolute madness. If you're Bruno Fernandes, you're looking at that thinking, hang on a second. And Marcus Rashford, who got a new contract last year, over 300 grand a week, has had a really, really poor season. Off the field, had the Belfast incident and another thing as well, I think after this Man City derby. And Bruno Fernandes is playing against Liverpool, you know, with basically one leg, it's centre-back, running through brick walls, always being available, being the captain, being a leader, always turning up in moments of difficulty, is, in my opinion, our best player. And he's on significantly less money than the top earners who are not providing what he's providing. If I'm his agent, if I'm Bruno, I'm also thinking, I want to stay at this club, but I want to be respected the right way. And the issue for me here, and keep getting your comments in, is that it's not exactly the fact that Bruno Fernandes needs to be on a higher wage. I don't think that. I think 240 grand a week is a very respectable wage. A very respectable wage for someone like Bruno, who is at Manchester United, and we're in the position that we're in. The issue is, Rashford shouldn't be on the wage that he's on. Sancho should never have been on the wage that he's on. Casemiro on his wage. Mount shouldn't have initially got that wage straight away. And there's earners above him that are not providing what he's providing. So you have to treat him fairly. And I think the main one in here is the Rashford contract, because Casemiro's going to go, so that gets rid of that issue. Jadon Sancho's probably going to go, so that gets rid of that wage issue. But Marcus Rashford is on over 300 grand a week. He's on a 5-year deal. He's going to see that contract out. Nobody's going to buy him. He's at Manchester United. He's here to stay. I keep seeing people saying, you know what, we should just put Rashford's contract down. You can't do that. We've given him the contract. So as long as Rashford underperforms, players that are performing better than him are going to be thinking, why am I nowhere near that wage? So that's kind of the stumbling block here, and that's kind of the benchmark for a lot of players. Well, Rashford's on this, so I'm performing, why can't I be on that? And Bruno Fernandes, in the grand scheme of things, performance-wise, deserves to be the highest paid player at the club. So do you go and give him that wage? And you're looking at way over 300 grand a week if you do that. Which I know Sir Jim Ratcliffe wants to keep the wage bill down, but the fact of the matter is, the people that you're working with give Rashford that contract last year, and it's there for 5 years, so you're going to have to address that. You either risk losing Bruno Fernandes off the back of it, or you give Bruno Fernandes that contract. And then you think, well, other players could just come and knock on the door and ask for more money as well. Nobody else is performing the way that Bruno is. So you're not going to really have that issue unless players actually start performing, and it could be a motivation factor for them. Get in the comments down below what you think. Got a couple more super chats coming in. Rory C says, come on guys, you want to make an exception to a new wage structure for the first player to make a play. He has 2 + 1 years left. Make a decision on him next summer. We're not talking about any old player though, Rory. We're talking about somebody who has given absolutely everything to this shirt since he's stepped into the club, been our best signing post-Fergie, is the captain and is outplaying all of the top earners at the club. Like I said, Rashford should never have got the contract that he's on. Is Rashford worth a KDB type contract, a Salah type contract? Is he in that bracket? No, he's not. He had a very, very good season. But he shouldn't have ever got that contract. Realistically, where was he going to go? What? You know, potentially could have gone to PSG, but I think he was always going to stay at Manchester United. It's his boyhood club. You know, he's comfortable in Manchester. We never should have gone to the extremes we did with Rashford's contract. We just shouldn't have. We never should have give Anthony 200 grand a week when he was on 100 grand at Ajax. We never should have done that. We never should have give Sancho initially straight off the bat 350 grand a week. That was absolutely silly. And I get that wasn't Sergio Ratcliffe and that wasn't INEOS's doing, but you've inherited this now. Sancho's going to go, Casemiro's going to go, but Rashford is going to be on that contract for 5 years. Whether people like it or not, he's not going to get sold because no one's going to buy him on that contract. And, you know, he's going to be staying at Manchester United. So you're going to keep having this issue. And I get you say, you know, you can't just make an exception for Bruno, but if you were going to make an exception for anyone, it would be Bruno. If you said to me now, you either give Bruno 350 grand a week or you lose him, I would give him 350 grand a week because I think he's that important. I wouldn't say that for anybody else in the squad, by the way. I wouldn't. I really wouldn't. There's other members of the squad that I think obviously are massively important. The younger players, you know, like the Cobbies, the Garnachos, the Hoylands and stuff, they're important. None of them would, I would never offer that sort of contract now for them. Don't get it wrong. But Bruno at his age, what he's done for the club, he'd probably be the only player that I'd make that exception for. But get in the comments what you think. Lee Cape Town says, are you serious? Give a 29-year-old another 5 years. This is a Premier League, not an easy league, and it tends to take his toll on players after 30. I mean, Bruno Fernandes isn't. I think he's built a little bit differently to a lot of people, to be honest with you. Based on how he keeps his body in shape, his professionalism, and his athleticism, I think he could play for another 5 years at the top level. I honestly do. Lee Cape Town says, hi Beth, at the end of the day, the best is to sell him looking at his age and the way INEOS works. So you've done that one as well. Quinn Star says he won't get higher anywhere else, so he won't leave. Ultimate TNT Gamer says, controversial, but Sancho and Casse are leaving. Just sell Rashford and make Bruno our highest earner. Set the bar there and never go beyond it. That would be the Ultimate TNT Gamer. That would be the ultimate ideal. But please get in the comments who's buying Rashford, because nobody is. Nobody's buying Rashford on the contract he's on. That's where Manchester United have the stumbling block, because I'd be open to selling Rashford. I'd be open to selling Rashford, you know, putting Bruno on 300 grand a week, absolute top earner, and that's your problem solved. But Rashford isn't going anywhere. He's not. And he's on that contract for 5 years. To be honest with you, it doesn't say Bruno Fernandes has to be the top earner. It says he wants to be in the top wage bracket. He deserves to be the top earner. But I think if you bumped Bruno up from 240 to 300, I think he would take it and be happy with it, because, you know, you look at other clubs around Europe. There was another super chat in there somewhere that says, is anybody else going to pay that? And, you know, is anybody else going to pay over 300 grand a week? Maybe, but with a transfer fee as well, considering the contract that he's on. Doubtful. So I think if you boost it up to 300 grand a week, you could probably get away with that. Lee Cape Town says, and this is my last point, Bruno should look no further than his agent. It's unfortunate, but cheap INEOS is not going to hand out huge contracts anymore. Would you blame INEOS if we lost Bruno then? Would you guys, you know, if INEOS turned round and said, we're putting our foot down, we're not doing these big wages anymore. I know that Rashford's on a really big wage, but that wasn't us. That was before we got here. You know, this is the way the cookie crumbles. You're not having more money, you're on a contract. And Bruno said, all right then, I feel undervalued. I want to win trophies. I'm going to Barcelona. I'm going to Bayern Munich. You know, I'm going to another club. And we lost Bruno. Would you blame INEOS for that? Or would that be okay with you? Because for me, it would be a massive failure if we lost Bruno Fernandes. It would. But I understand everyone has different opinions and I'd be interested to hear them. Tommy K says, how have 76% voted to give him a pay rise? Like, come on. Do you remember how poor he was in the middle of the season? Everyone was poor, Tommy. Everyone was poor. But if you look at the actual value of what players provide to us, he's the biggest value player we have in terms of everything. I get you have the younger players, I get that, but you know, we're not talking about big wages for the younger players yet. Mario Franco says, how would you replace Bruno if he was sold? He must stay. And that's the thing. Please tell me someone that's going to, you know, replace Bruno. Please tell me a player that's going to replace Bruno. Talent, attitude, work rate, knows the club, leadership. There's just not, for me, somebody. I think he's irreplaceable. And also, this is another point to consider. Saudi Arabia, they want Bruno. They massively want Bruno. Like, they're willing to pay massive money for Bruno. They're willing to pay him massive wages. You know, we could give Bruno a new contract in terms of, you know, on a wage where he feels valued and he's one of the highest earners at the club. And then a couple years down the line, like 3 years down the line, Saudi come back in and you end up selling Bruno for a huge fee because he's at a point in his career where he's willing to go there. For now, obviously, he wants to compete for major trophies and he wants to stay in Europe. But, you know, a few years down the line, you could have Saudi Arabia knocking on the door for Bruno. They absolutely love him and they want him. And you could get a really good profit out of him as well. They're things you've got to think about too. Somebody just mentioned that in the chat, actually. But yeah, that's the thing I wanted to talk about. Like, Mason Mount's got the number 7 and he's on 10 grand more a week than him. That's insulting to Bruno, considering what he gives to the club, and you can't say it's not. You can't say it's not. So these are things that have got to be considered. And like I said, I wrote down here, our problem isn't Bruno earning over 200 grand a week. It's players earning 300 grand a week and more. 2 of them should be sold, i.e. Casemiro and Sancho, and Rashford should be on 200 grand a week max. But we give him a stupid contract, and that's what we've done now. And, you know, we're kind of going to have to deal with that for years to come. It's which way you go about it. Do you give Bruno the extra, or do you draw a line in the sand? I would give Bruno the extra, and it would be my only exception. But get in the comments down below. Like, do you know, there's people here, by the way, that wanted to give Pogba 400 grand a week at one point, which was just absolutely ludicrous. Thank God we never did, considering what he's done with his career since then. I mean, Pogba was a super talented player, don't get me wrong. I always wanted it to work. But there was people that wanted to give him 400 grand a week. We never should have done it, and I'm glad we didn't. But, you know, we have had stupid contracts at this club. You know, we've had massive contracts, and we've managed to get a lot of them down. Like, De Gea was on 375 grand a week. That's gone now. You know, Varane's gone on his 340 grand a week contract. Hopefully Sancho's going to go. Hopefully Casemiro's going to go. There was other players on big wages as well. I mean, Ronaldo, I know it was Ronaldo, but he was on over 500 grand a week, I think, at Manchester United. So we have got rid of a lot of big wages, to be fair. I think making your most important player post Ferguson the highest paid player at the club, I don't think that is massively going against the grain, to be honest with you. But get in the comments what you think. And the votes, over 4,000 votes, 76% say make top earner. So we're kind of all on the same page with this one. But yeah, that is the update on Bruno Fernandes. All of the talk about, you know, him potentially leaving the club. He wants to feel more valued. He wants to see the long-term vision of the club, and he wants to be one of the best paid players. And I don't think that is completely out of line. Jake Adams says, you know what? Newsflash, a really ambitious player that is super talented and could be playing, in my opinion, in most top teams in Europe, wants to see a long-term vision, a plan to win trophies, and wants to earn one of the highest at a club where he's the best player. Oh, that's so out of line. You know, of course Bruno wants that. He wants to win. He wants to see the vision. It's not just about the money, by the way. He wants to see the vision. He wants to know who the manager's going to be. He wants to see where the plan is and how he's going to compete for Premier Leagues, how he's going to be in the Champions League. He wants to see that, and he wants to be valued. I think that just shows the type of professional that Bruno is, personally. But on to the next topic I wanted to speak about, and it was a little, actually we'll do this super chat first from Sam Brox. Statistically, Bruno was the best centre attacking midfielder in the Premier League last season. Why would we not put him on the same level as other players who are less important to the team? Exactly, there's players in that team where I couldn't care less, you know, if they went. You know, if you had players, you know, if you had other players, you know, knocking on the door being like, Rashford's on over 300 grand a week, I want more money, I'd say see you later to the majority of him. Like I said, there's no one at that club that I see as untouchable. Honestly, there isn't, apart from Bruno, Martinez and the young players. They're the only ones, and Dalot, to be fair, he's got into that bracket where, you know, he's really respected. I want to build with him. But, you know, if Dalot asked for over 300 grand a week, I'd say, see you later. Like, that's not happening at this point in his career. I mean, I really like him, I want him to stay. But there's very few players that I would consider bending, you know, the wage structure for. There is, because you need to perform. But Bruno is one of them that you've got to look at. I always say this, he's completely overhated. Like, he could get into most teams in the world. Honestly, you just look at him when he plays for Portugal, how good he is. He's overhated because he plays for Manchester United in a really poor team, and he still continues to deliver. I think a lot of people, if he left, would understand the value of what he brings to Manchester United, and I hope we don't see that when it is too late. He's someone that deserves a lot more credit, in my opinion. Really does. But anyway, let's move on to the centre-back situation. So, centre-back, a dilemma that Manchester United have. So, Manchester United are absolutely in the market for a right-sided centre-back. Depending on funds, they also want to get a left-sided centre-back in as well. No word of a lie, we have been linked to over 10 centre-backs. Must be over 10. Must be 10 to 20 centre-backs at Manchester United. It's like the manager situation where there's a new manager every week that United are going to go and get. There's a new centre-back every week that Manchester United are going to get. I'd say the three most likely at the moment, the three mainstays in terms of names is Branthwaite, Todibo, and to be honest, keep an eye on Marc Guéhi as well. I know Mark spoke about it quite a lot. He's somebody that's definitely on Manchester United's radar. And then you have the outliers. You have the INEOS, who has been linked to Manchester United very recently as a left-sided centre-back. Diamande, also of Sporting Lisbon, been linked to Manchester United. These two both being linked makes me think Sporting, you know, might need to sell for a bit of money, to be honest with you. And they are two very good players that they could have up for sale. I know INEOS has a release clause that somebody could be looking to trigger, so maybe that's why he's on Man United's radar. And also he's been linked to Manchester United, money coming in for Sporting, but he's somebody to look at. We had Gleison Bremer linked for a long time, but that has died down recently as well. Cheap options like Trevor Chalobah have been mentioned. I mean, you've had Max Kilman mentioned from Wolves. Is there anyone else I'm missing out on? Antonio Silva, one that was mentioned for quite a long time, but that's massively kind of gone off the radar now. But if you look at, I think our options for right-sided centre-back, Todibo is obviously number one on the hotometer, on hot alert. You have Yeni Loro as well, who, let's be honest, he's going to go to Real Madrid, but he's someone that Manchester United are definitely interested in. Then you have the likes of Diamande, you know, Gleison Bremer, Chalobah, who is kind of a little bit on the outskirts. Left-sided centre-back, you have Branthwaite, who I think is who Manchester United want. You have Inacio, who is somebody that we're definitely chasing and looking at. You have Marc Guéhi. I know he's right-footed, but he does play on the left side. But the only thing about Guéhi for me is he's really good, he's really talented. He's somebody that I think he's going to have a big career. And he's going to take the next step. You know, whether he leaves Crystal Palace this year or next year, he's got a year left on his deal. I think he's going to leave at some point, and he's going to take the next step, Premier League proven. But he is predominantly right-footed, and he plays as a left-sided centre-back. We know Ten Hag is very, very, very adamant on having a left-footer play on the left side, a right-footer play on the right side. So I don't know how that would play out, but he is somebody that Manchester United is watching. You've got Kilman as well on the outskirts as well. So you've got options. You've got options there. Who are Manchester United going to go for? Well, what I found really interesting, and keep getting your comments in as well. Inacio can play left back as well, says Rob Traff. Interesting. With the situation on last night, the news coming out about Inacio, and I wanted to speak about this, and I know Mark spoke about it already, but I kind of wanted to have my say on it and offer kind of my take of when I saw this earlier. So let me just get it up quickly as well. So, on the Inacio stuff, Manchester United and Liverpool have both been monitoring Inacio, and his release clause is around €60 million, which equals probably around £55 million. We heard about this last night. You know, it's not new news, but Manchester United are looking at Inacio. For me, this could be a ploy to get Branthwaite for a lower price. And hear me out on here. So Branthwaite, it's no secret, INEOS absolutely love him. He's English, you know, he fits that bracket, fits the English quota. Premier League proven, you know, INEOS, you know, they're getting all these big green flags, and they love Branthwaite. Erik Ten Hag has signed Branthwaite off. He's somebody that, it's no secret, Manchester United really want him. Everton value Branthwaite at around £75 to £80 million. It's out of our price range. There's no way Manchester United can pay that. INEOS, especially with Omar Barada, are setting the precedent. We will walk away from deals if they're too expensive financially. We will do that. Omar Brado has done it at City, he'll do it at Manchester United. If they financially don't make sense, we're not doing it. So for 75 to 80 million, there's no way we're getting Branthwaite. It won't happen. Everton need money. They need money by the end of June. They are in big financial trouble. They need money. They're going to have to sell. There's talks about them even selling Pickford, who is, you know, been their player of the year for like the last 3 years. He's a fan favourite. They love him. Branthwaite, they're going to have to let go of anyway at some point. Let's be honest. He's 21 years old. He's on a very high trajectory. Manchester United really want him. See where I'm going with this. Gonzalo Inacio has a release clause worth €60 million, which is £55 million. If nobody else is interested in going getting Branthwaite from Everton and they're against the clock to sell him, if it looks like Manchester United are going to spend £55 million, €60 million on Inacio, who is a left-sided centre-back, Branthwaite is also a left-sided centre-back. Everton might start to worry and think, hang on a second, United actually are going to go for Inacio here, which means they won't be coming in for Branthwaite. We need to make some money. Like, we need Branthwaite to get sold realistically to make some money. What are we going to do about this? So it might be Manchester United thinking, either sell us Branthwaite for a lower price, around £60 million, or we are going to spend that money, but we're going to spend it on someone else, and you're not going to get that money from us. So either take the price down on Branthwaite, or we are going to spend that money on somebody else. So it could be a ploy to kind of get Everton to lower their fee on Branthwaite. That was just kind of a theory I had in my head. Because if Everton don't have anybody else lined up for Branthwaite, because he is going to be expensive, they're going to be looking around thinking, you know, that is some money we could be bringing into the club. That's £60 million that we could lose out on. And yeah, we could sell Branthwaite next year, the year after, of course. But they're in desperate need for money now, and they are going to have to sell, whether that be Onana, whether that be Pickford, whether that be Branthwaite. So if it looks like we're going spending that money on Inacio, they're going to be thinking, hang on a second, we'd like that money coming into our pockets. So I thought that was a really interesting theory. Liverpool also monitoring Gonzalo Inacio as well. Again, this could be Sporting trying to generate some money. You know, you kind of have to look at all aspects in terms of the centre-back situation. Gonzalo Inacio, for me, is interesting. I would prefer Branthwaite personally, but he is interesting, and if he's going to be a little bit cheaper, it's something you're going to have to explore there as well. Get in the comments down below what you guys think. We've got some chats coming in here. Hang on a second. Let me just double check on the super chat situation. So James Smith says, if Garnacho scores 40 goals next season and he wants to be the highest paid player in the club, or he's off to Real Madrid, what happens then? It's not going to happen, James Smith. I'm sorry, it's not going to happen. It's really not. It's just not going to happen. So why are we talking about scenarios that aren't going to happen? Like, I understand your point, but Bruno Fernandes already has that in the bank credit. Garnacho, for one, he's not going into his last contract. Bruno Fernandes is. He's going towards the later ends of his career at 30 years old. And Garnacho isn't going to score 40 goals next season. I mean, I hope he does, but he isn't. And Real Madrid also aren't going to come in for Garnacho next season. It's not going to happen because they've just bought Mbappe, they've got Rodrigo, they've got Vinicius Jr., they've got Endrick. Like, there's no point talking about scenarios that aren't going to happen, to be honest with you. Kenny says, at Beth mind, you know, Sancho is not on 350 grand a week. Do your research. Not with the wage cuts of the Champions League, but his contract with all the bonuses and everything added on is around 350 grand a week. Roy Law says basic wage with performance-based add-ons, simple. I mean, that is a way that we could go down as well. Keep getting your comments in. And Afon Aiden says, big clubs sell their players when they have high value. It's time for Bruno to go before he goes in a few years. Chris Gray says, I'd be tempted to offer 45 million for Branthwaite in 2 to 3 weeks and say, take it or leave it, and then let them debate it for PSR. Obviously, the financial stuff there. I mean, I think we definitely should put an offer in for Branthwaite, 100%. He's our top priority in terms of left-sided centre-back. I think Manchester United, in an ideal world, would want this window, centre-back-wise, Branthwaite and Todibo. Todibo for right side, Branthwaite for left side, but can also play both. That would be absolutely ideal. But Branthwaite's wage being around 75 to 80 million, which at the moment that is what Everton want, is throwing a massive spanner in the works because we can't afford to do that. Todibo is a deal we should get wrapped up really quickly. And to be honest with you, I don't know why there's not more news around Todibo now, which is slightly starting to worry me. Like, the transfer window opens in less than 2 weeks now, and Todibo is a deal we could do literally right at the start, extremely quickly. It's going to cost you around 40 million. Romano's already said that. Nice would be willing to do a deal for us. Sergeant Ratcliffe has the connections. Todibo wants to come. He's not going to the Euros. Why is there not more news around this now? Why are we not in conversation already? If he's someone that we really, really want. That's the only kind of thing I have on Todibo right now, because that deal could get done literally so quick. That's one we should already have wrapped up. But I think they're looking at how much Branthwaite's going to cost and how much they could potentially spend on a left-sided centre-back as well. Of course, if Everton stand strong and they won't let Branthwaite go for a lesser fee, then you start to look at the Inacio, you start to look at the Mark Gahey is going to be around 60 million. Apparently, Crystal Palace want around that for him. And Inacio, we all know that his release clause is around 60 million euros. So you're looking around at least the 50 million mark for the left-sided centre-back, which, again, is a lot of money. You spend 40 on Todibo, around 50 to 60 on a left-sided, you're looking at 100 mils just in centre-backs. So Manchester United need to work out a few things, but Branthwaite, for me, I definitely think is our top priority, and I think we'll do everything we can to try and get him. So the right-sided centre-back, Todibo, you get that wrapped up really quick within the first week or so of the transfer window. That's what I'd be doing if I was INEOS. I mean, we don't even have a manager currently, which is really worrying. Maybe when the manager situation is sorted out, we'll hear more on the transfers. You get the right-sided centre-back wrapped up in Todibo, 40 mil, and then you leave it till the last week of June. You try everything to try and get Branthwaite. If that doesn't happen, you're going to have to look down your list of options for the left-sided centre-back area, and that's the way Man United will probably go about it. I mean, Yeni Loro's going to go to Real Madrid. I don't think there's much point talking about that as much as we would want him. Then you've got, in case Manchester United do decide to spend big on Branthwaite, which I don't think we will, there's the option of Chalobah for 25 million as a right-sided centre-back, which I like him as a squad player, but, I don't want to be lining up next season as Chalobah as our first choice right-sided centre-back, to be honest with you. So they're the options Manchester United have. Getting down in the comments who you think it'll be and where you think we'll go. It's a guessing game at the moment, realistically, but Todibo, Branthwaite, I definitely think are our top two options. And we've got MKF saying a left-sided centre-back would happen late July/August if we even get the money for it. Well, it depends on the Branthwaite and Everton situation, to be honest with you. And Matt says, offer Everton a straight swap with Maguire. I mean, it's somebody to consider for Everton. I don't know if Maguire would want to go there and the wages he's on, but you look at it, Maguire, I think, has a year left on his deal, and Everton, I think he'd fit in there really well. Sean Dyche, I think, would love him. Something to think about. GDTB Bath says, does Todibo want to come if the manager situation is up in the air? If I'm a player and Southgate is the manager, I'd pass on United. They need to make up their mind. Yeah, absolutely. The manager situation needs to get sorted. I mean, we've talked about that so many times. Players coming into the club, players, looking at the next project like Bruno Fernandes and looking at, the future. They want to know the project. They want to know the manager, especially players like Todibo. 24 years old is a crucial age he's at. The next project he takes, you want to know what the situation is. And can I just say quickly on this to wrap up my show? First of all, if we did get Southgate, I mean, I would question a lot of things that's going on at that football club. I mean, all you had to do is kind of watch the England game last night to understand where Southgate's at. That is, we should be going anywhere near that. And anybody at Manchester United who is actually even saying we should go for Southgate, I would instantly, if I was somebody in the hierarchy, question what they're doing at the club, because you don't have the football intelligence. Like, honestly, to actually think that Southgate should be a Manchester United manager, I don't want them near the club, because you don't understand Manchester United if you think that's an option. Second of all, I don't think it will be Southgate, by the way. I really don't. But he's definitely someone that was talked about. He was somebody that's been talked about in meetings. But basically, I think the reason I think it's not Southgate is logistics in England, which is scary because it never should have been Southgate, even if he was free, waiting and ready. It just should never have been, and hopefully it won't be. But in terms of, it's weird to me because I always wanted a new England manager. But now Southgate's been linked to United, I'm like, stay for England for as long as possible to make sure he's not linked to United. But in terms of the manager situation, the fact that we're at the 4th of June and we still don't know who's going to be manager for Manchester United next season, for me, is really worrying, and it's just signs that this has not been handled well. INEOS are changing the club behind the scenes, and they've done some really good work. Oh God, sorry. They've done some really good work there. but the manager situation has been handled incredibly poorly. And, you know, even if we backed Ten Hag or sacked him now, I'd say the same thing. The way it's been handled doesn't show to me how a top club should handle, you know, a manager situation. We've waited too long. We've waited too long, and we need to know. Hopefully get a decision by the end of this week, because, you know, I'm worried about our transfer window now, because where's the planning? I mean, I really hope that I am genuinely surprised and we pull off an absolute blinder of a transfer window and we've done all this planning behind the scenes that just hasn't been leaked out. But I'm really kind of worried about this situation, and I just want to know a decision. You know, you guys know I want Ten Hag in, but if he's gone, tell us. Tell us he's gone so we can get on with planning the summer. But look, everyone, ending the show on the note of the poll. You guys in the community have had your say, and 76% of you want to make Bruno Fernandes the top earner at the club, with 24% of you saying sell this summer. I think we'll get more clarity on the Bruno Fernandes situation again when it's revealed who the Manchester United manager is. And it's mad because, you know, Manchester United should be having meetings with players, meetings to discuss the future, meetings to discuss where we see you at the club, whether you think we think you should be moving on, meetings with players' agents about who we want to be bringing in the summer. But any meeting we have right now, well, who's going to be a manager? We don't know. What's a long-term vision with a new manager? Oh, we don't even know who the manager is. We need to get this sorted ASAP. But hit a like on the video, everyone. Thank you for joining me on this Tuesday afternoon. Get in the comments down below all your thoughts on the centre-back situation, priorities, where you'd spend the money, the Bruno Fernandes situation, and what you're thinking going into this transfer window. Get in all your comments down below. Let's hope we have a decision on the manager soon, and I will see you on the next one, everyone.